The neon lights danced across the windshield as I navigated through the labyrinth of the city's nightlife. The hum of the city, a symphony of distant laughter, honking cars, and the rhythmic beat of music spilling from bars and clubs filled the air. It was a Friday night, and the city was alive, pulsating with energy and the promise of untold stories. I was on my way to see Emily, my girlfriend of 2 years, who had recently started working as a bottle service attendant at one of the upscale bars downtown. As I parked and made my way to the bar, the contrast between the bustling streets and the intimate glow of the venue struck me. The bar was a haven of sophistication amidst the chaos, with its sleek design, soft lighting, and an air of exclusivity that whispered secrets in the dark. I spotted Emily almost immediately, her presence like a beacon. She moved with effortless grace among the patrons, her laughter mingling with the clink of glasses and the low murmur of conversations. She was a vision, her hair cascading in soft waves, her smile lighting up the room. "Derek's here tonight," she whispered to me, a playful twinkle in her eye as she leaned in for a quick kiss. "Our favorite financier. He's been more generous than ever." I couldn't help but smile at her enthusiasm. Emily had a way of making everyone feel like the most important person in the room, a skill that made her beloved by the regulars. Derek, a finance manager with a penchant for the finer things in life, was no exception. I had met him a few times, always impressed by his charisma and the ease with which he commanded attention. As the night wore on, I watched from the sidelines, a cocktail in hand, as Emily worked the room. She was in her element, her energy infectious, her laughter genuine. Derek was there as promised, holding court in his usual spot with a group of equally well-dressed individuals. He caught my eye at one point, raising his glass in a silent toast before turning his attention back to Emily, something in his gaze lingering a bit too long for comfort. The uneasy feeling was quickly dispelled by Emily's return, her arms slipping around my waist as she guided me to a quiet corner. "You're doing that brooding thing again," she teased, her nose crinkling in that adorable way it does when she's trying to read my mood. "What's on your mind?" "Nothing," I lied, forcing a smile. "Just enjoying watching you in your element." She studied me for a moment, her gaze softening. "You know you're my favorite person, right?" she said, her voice barely above a whisper, her words a balm to my unfounded worries. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of laughter, music, and the warmth of Emily's presence by my side. It was moments like these, amidst the glittering nightlife, that I felt most at home, most alive. Yet as we made our way back to the apartment we shared, the image of Derek's lingering gaze haunted me, a shadow creeping at the edges of my consciousness, threatening the sanctuary we had built together. Unbeknownst to me, it was a harbinger of the storm that was about to unfold, a storm that would test the very foundations of our relationship. The morning light filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow on the walls of our apartment. It was a gentle awakening, the kind that promised a day of simple pleasures and quiet moments. Emily was still asleep, her breathing a steady rhythm that filled the space with a sense of peace. I watched her for a moment, marveling at the serenity on her face, a stark contrast to the vibrant energy she exuded at the bar. It was these quiet moments that I cherished the most, a reminder of the intimacy and connection we shared, away from the bustling world outside. With a day off from my job as an IT consultant, I had planned to indulge in some leisurely coding for a personal project. Emily's laptop was closer, left open on the dining table from the night before, and without a second thought I reached for it. She had always been open with her passwords, a gesture of trust that I never took for granted. The familiar startup chime greeted me, followed by the clutter of her desktop, a chaotic collection of shortcuts and files that mirrored her vibrant personality. As I navigated through her folders, searching for the note-taking app she used that also contained some shared project ideas, an email notification popped up. "Payment received, $2,500 from Derek," it read, glaring at me from the corner of the screen. My heart skipped a beat, curiosity mingling with an inexplicable sense of dread. Derek? Why would he send her such a substantial amount of money? And at 4:30 a.m., a multitude of explanations raced through my mind, each more unsettling than the last. It was probably nothing, a simple misunderstanding, I reassured myself. Yet the seed of doubt had been planted, its roots taking hold with alarming speed. I clicked on the notification, my hands trembling slightly, betraying the calm I tried to maintain. The email was brief, lacking any explanation for the transaction, only a simple note attached. For the other night. Thanks for everything. The words were like a punch to the gut, vague yet loaded with implications. Thanks for what? What had happened the other night that warranted such a generous payment? The trust and openness that had defined our relationship suddenly felt like a facade, and I was left grappling with a whirlwind of emotions, confusion, jealousy, and a growing sense of betrayal. I closed the laptop, the screen going dark along with the myriad of explanations I'd tried to conjure. The silence of the apartment felt heavier, charged with the weight of my discovery. Emily stirred then, her movements gentle and unaware of the turmoil that had taken hold of me. "Good morning," she murmured, her voice groggy with sleep, a smile playing on her lips as she stretched. "Morning," I replied, my voice strained, the word feeling like ash in my mouth. She noticed then, her brow furrowing in concern as she took in my expression. "What's wrong?" she asked, sitting up, her gaze searching mine for answers I wasn't sure I wanted to give. "It's nothing," I lied, forcing a smile that felt more like a grimace. "Just thinking about some work stuff." She didn't look convinced but let it slide, her attention turning to the day ahead. But as we moved through our morning routine, the distance between us grew, a chasm filled with unspoken questions and doubts. I knew I had to confront her about the transaction, yet the fear of what her answer might be held me back. It was a moment of reckoning, the beginning of a journey that would challenge everything I thought I knew about trust, love, and the fragile nature of relationships. The day dragged on, each hour stretching longer than the last, as the weight of the morning's discovery pressed down on me. The usual comfort of our cozy apartment, with its mismatched furniture and walls adorned with memories of our adventures, felt stifling. The space between Emily and me, usually filled with laughter and shared glances, now seemed to echo with the things left unsaid. Dinner was a quiet affair. Emily had made pasta, her way of weaving love into the simplest of dishes, but tonight each bite tasted bland, overshadowed by the turmoil churning inside me. She had noticed my withdrawn mood, casting me worried looks between attempts at casual conversation. It was clear that the vibrant connection we usually shared had dimmed, clouded by the shadow of Derek's transaction. As the plates were cleared, and we settled into the soft glow of the living room, the silence that enveloped us was suffocating. The soft hum of the city at night, a comforting backdrop on any other day, now seemed to mock my indecision. I knew I couldn't let this fester, couldn't allow this seed of doubt to grow unchecked. Gathering my courage, I turned to face her, the question burning like a fire within me. "Emily, can we talk about something?" My voice was steady, belying the storm of emotions raging inside. She looked up, her expression a mix of concern and confusion. "Of course, what's up?" I hesitated, the words I had rehearsed all day suddenly elusive. "It's about a PayPal transaction from Derek. I saw it this morning." My admission hung in the air, charged with the weight of accusation. Her reaction was immediate, a flash of understanding crossing her features before being quickly masked by concern. "Oh, that," she said, her tone casual, too casual. "It was just a tip, Michael." Derek was feeling generous that night. He gave it to us, the girls and me, for going the extra mile. It was a slow night at the bar. Her explanation flowed smoothly, rehearsed almost, yet sincerity shone in her eyes. It was the same look she gave me when we shared our hopes and dreams, a look I had always believed was reserved for me alone. "But why 2,500? And why directly to you?" The questions tumbled out, each one a testament to the growing rift between us. She sighed, a hint of frustration creeping into her voice, "because it was easier that way. He trusts me to split it among the girls." And it was late. The bar was about to close. He didn't want to make a fuss. Her words painted a picture of innocence, of a situation purely professional and devoid of the sinister overtones my imagination had conjured. Yet the seed of doubt refused to be dislodged, its roots entwined with the trust I had placed in her. "Michael, you know me. I wouldn't do anything to jeopardize what we have." "You believe me, right?" Her gaze was earnest, searching mine for any sign of doubt. In that moment, I wanted nothing more than to believe her, to rewind the day and erase the gnawing suspicion that had taken hold. Yet the simplicity of her explanation, the ease with which the story flowed from her lips, did little to ease my troubled mind. "I want to believe you, Emily, I really do. But it's a lot to process." My admission was a whisper, a reflection of the internal battle waging within. The rest of the evening passed in a haze, the tension between us a palpable force. We moved around each other like planets in separate orbits, our connection frayed by the day's revelations. As we went to bed, the distance between us in the darkness felt insurmountable, a chasm widened by suspicion and the fear of betrayal. Lying awake, I stared at the ceiling, the shadows playing out scenes of doubt and mistrust. The image of Derek's lingering gaze, Emily's laughter ringing in my ears, and the cold, hard numbers of the transaction replayed in my mind. The foundation of our relationship, built on trust and openness, seemed to crumble beneath the weight of my fears, leaving me to wonder if the love we shared was enough to bridge the gap that had formed between us. The morning light failed to bring the new beginnings it usually promised. Instead, it cast long shadows across the room, mirroring the darkening thoughts that had kept me awake. Emily had left early, her parting kiss a whisper of the intimacy we once shared, now tainted by the spectre of doubt. Alone, with the silence of the apartment amplifying my restlessness, I turned to the one place I hoped would offer clarity, the digital world where secrets could be uncovered with the right keystrokes. My resolve was a fortress. The decision to delve deeper into Emily's interactions with Derek felt like a betrayal of the trust we had nurtured. Yet the gnawing uncertainty left me no choice. Seated at my desk, the glow of the screen illuminated the determination set in my features. I started with the basics, a dive into the transaction history that extended beyond the single email. There were no more payments, but the absence of evidence did little to quell my suspicions. It was a breadcrumb trail that led nowhere, leaving me more lost in the maze of my doubts. With a heavy heart, I ventured into the territory I had vowed never to cross, the personal messages. It felt like crossing a sacred line, yet the compulsion for the truth pushed my reservations aside. The messages between Emily and Derek were initially mundane, the banter of acquaintances, but as I scrolled, the tone shifted subtly. The familiarity of their exchanges grew, sprinkled with inside jokes and casual flirtations that hinted at a closeness I hadn't known existed. Each message was a dagger, the words blurring before my eyes as the reality of their connection seeped into the crevices of my heart. There was nothing overtly incriminating, yet the intimacy of their conversations was undeniable, a stark contrast to the professional relationship Emily had described. The world around me seemed to shrink, the walls of the apartment closing in as the implications of my discovery settled in. A mix of anger, sadness, and betrayal churned within me, a tumultuous sea threatening to engulf the love I held for Emily. The digital evidence before me painted a picture I could no longer ignore, yet it offered no solace, no clear path forward. I leaned back in my chair, the weight of my findings a heavy cloak around my shoulders. The room felt colder, the air charged with the echo of 1,000 unspoken words. The trust that had once been the cornerstone of our relationship now lay in ruins, shattered by the reality of Emily's hidden world. The hours passed in a blur, the day fading into evening with no sign of Emily. My mind raced with rehearsed confrontations and imagined defenses, a chess game of accusations and explanations. Yet beneath the anger and hurt, a sliver of hope clung desperately to the love that had bound us together. As the key turned in the lock and Emily stepped into the apartment, the mask of normalcy she wore did little to hide the apprehension in her eyes. She could sense the shift in the atmosphere, the tension that hung between us like a thick fog. "Michael, we need to talk," she began, her voice a tremulous attempt at bravery. The words hung in the air, a prelude to the storm that was about to break. The investigation had deepened the chasm between us, a gap that words alone could not bridge. As we stood on the precipice of confrontation, the fragments of our relationship lay scattered at our feet, a testament to the fragility of trust and the painful quest for truth. The apartment, once a sanctuary of our shared dreams and laughter, now felt like the courtroom. The air was thick with anticipation, each breath a silent countdown to the confrontation that loomed between us. Emily stood by the door, her silhouette framed against the backdrop of the city at dusk, her posture rigid, as if bracing for the storm. "I saw the messages, Emily," I began, my voice steady despite the turmoil that raged within. "Between you and Derek. The words hung between us, heavy and foreboding. Emily's face paled, her eyes widening in shock or perhaps fear, as the facade of normalcy we had clung to shattered around us. "Michael, she started, her voice a fragile whisper. But I couldn't bear the excuses, not anymore. "Don't," I cut her off, my heart aching with a mixture of anger and sorrow. "How could you?" The question was a plea, a desperate search for something, anything, that could make sense of the betrayal I felt. Emily took a step forward, her hands reaching out as if to bridge the gap between us with touch, but I recoiled, the distance a necessary shield against the pain. "It's not what you think," she said, her voice gaining strength, a hint of indignation lacing her words. "Derek and I are just friends. Yes, we joked around, maybe flirted a bit, but it was harmless. I never meant to hurt you." Her defense, earnest in its delivery, clashed with the evidence of intimacy I had witnessed. The messages, the late-night transaction, it all painted a picture too vivid to be dismissed by claims of innocence. "Friends don't send $2,500 for going the extra mile," I countered, the bitterness in my voice a reflection of the hurt that consumed me. "And they don't share messages that should have been for us, not for some customer." The word tasted like venom on my tongue, a label that reduced their interactions to transactions, stripping away the trust and respect I thought our relationship was built on. Emily's face crumbled, the indignation giving way to a profound sadness. I didn't realize how it looked. I thought I was just being friendly, making connections for work. I never imagined it would come to this. Her admission, a mix of apology and explanation, did little to quell the storm within me. The trust that had once been the foundation of our relationship felt irrevocably broken, shattered by doubts and insecurities I couldn't unsee. "We're talking about our relationship, Em, not some networking opportunity," I said, the frustration evident in my voice. "How can I trust you after this? How can we go back to how things were?" The room fell silent, the question hanging in the air unanswered. The gap between us felt insurmountable, a chasm widened by hurt feelings and broken trust. Emily looked at me, her eyes brimming with tears, a mirror of my own heartache. "I love you, Michael," she whispered, the words a tender balm that no longer had the power to heal the wounds between us. "I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." Her apology, sincere in its delivery, echoed in the empty space, a testament to the complexity of love and the pain of betrayal. As the night crept in, the darkness outside mirrored the shadow that had fallen over our relationship. The breaking point had been reached, the damage too profound to ignore. We stood there in the fading light, grappling with the reality that what we had could never be the same. The trust that had once bound us together now lay in fragments at our feet, a reminder of how easily love can be tarnished by doubt and misunderstanding. The aftermath of our confrontation left a silence that was suffocating. The apartment, once filled with the resonance of our shared existence, now echoed with the ghost of a love that had fractured under the weight of mistrust and betrayal. Emily and I moved around each other like shadows, our interactions hollow, the space between us charged with the unsaid and the undone. In the days that followed, I found myself trapped in a cycle of anger, sadness, and disbelief. The fabric of our relationship had been torn, and in its place lingered a pervasive sense of loss. I replayed our conversation over and over, each iteration a futile attempt to find a different outcome, one where trust wasn't shattered and love wasn't questioned. Emily tried to bridge the chasm that had opened between us, her efforts a mix of apologies, explanations, and promises of transparency. But the foundation upon which we had built our relationship had cracked, the fissures too deep to simply be filled with words of regret. The trust I had in her, once unshakable, now felt like a distant memory, eroded by the revelations that had come to light. It was on a Thursday evening, the city outside our window a blur of lights and shadows, that the finality of our situation became undeniable. We sat across from each other at our dining table, an ocean of unsaid words between us. Emily's eyes, once vibrant with laughter and love, now reflected the pain and weariness of our prolonged ordeal. "Michael, where do we go from here?" Her voice was a whisper, fragile and laden with sorrow. I looked at her, really looked, seeing not just the woman I loved, but the entirety of our journey together. The highs and the lows, the joy we shared, the dreams we built, now overshadowed by the trust we lost. I don't know, Emily, I admitted, my voice heavy with regret. I can't get past this. The trust is gone, and I don't know if we can ever get it back. The admission felt like a surrender, an acknowledgement of the insurmountable obstacle that lay between us. Emily nodded, her expression one of resigned understanding, as if she too had come to the same painful conclusion. I'm sorry, Michael, for everything. I wish... Her voice trailed off, the sentence unfinished, the wish unspoken, lost to the chasm that had swallowed us whole. The decision that followed was heart-rending, a mutual acknowledgement that the love we shared was not enough to overcome the betrayal and hurt. Emily would move out, we decided, the words a formalization of the distance that had already grown between us. The apartment, once a testament to our love, would now serve as a reminder of what we had lost. Packing her belongings was a silent choreography of grief and farewell, each item a memory, each memory a sting. When the day came for her to leave, the finality of our goodbye was a tangible presence in the room. As the door closed behind her, the silence that enveloped the apartment was deafening, a stark contrast to the life and love that once filled the space. I was left alone, surrounded by the remnants of our shared life, the future we envisioned now just a mirage. The fallout of our relationship was not just the end of us, but the end of the person I was with her. In the quiet that followed, I was confronted with the daunting task of rebuilding, not just the space around me, but the trust in myself and in love that had been so profoundly shaken. As the days turned into weeks, the sharpness of the pain dulled, leaving in its wake a profound sense of loss and reflection. The lessons of trust, betrayal, and the fragile nature of relationships were hard-earned, each one a step on the path to healing and eventually forgiveness. But as the city lights flickered outside my window, a symbol of life moving forward, I couldn't help but wonder if the scars of this experience would ever truly fade. In the silence that followed Emily's departure, the apartment became a mausoleum of our past life together. The walls, once witnesses to our laughter and love, now stood testament to the quiet desolation that had settled over my world. I wandered through the rooms, each corner filled with echoes of a life that felt both intimately familiar and painfully distant. The air was thick with the residue of our shared existence, every breath a reminder of what had been lost. The days melded into one another, a blur of solitude and introspection. I found myself retreating further into the recesses of my mind, replaying the moments that led to our undoing. The initial shock of discovery had given way to a deeper, more pervasive sorrow, a mourning not just for the relationship we had, but for the person I had become in its wake. As the city outside continued its relentless pace, I was stuck, frozen in a moment of profound self-reflection. The trust I had placed in Emily, so complete and unwavering, had been a cornerstone of my identity. To see it crumble was to watch a part of myself disintegrate, leaving behind a void filled with doubts and questions about my judgment, my self-worth, and the very nature of love itself. In the quiet hours of the night, when the world seemed to hold its breath, I grappled with the weight of my regrets. The what-ifs and if-onlys danced through my mind, a cruel ballet of missed opportunities and misunderstood intentions. Had I been too quick to judge, too slow to listen? Could a different word, a different choice have altered our path? Yet among the regrets and the reflections, a glimmer of understanding began to emerge. The pain of betrayal, though deep, had unearthed a resilience within me I hadn't known existed. The process of questioning, of doubting, had forced me to confront the complexities of my own heart, to recognize the strength in vulnerability and the courage it takes to trust, not just in others but in oneself. The apartment, once a shared canvas of our love, now became the backdrop for my journey of self-discovery. I began to fill the space with new memories, each step forward a testament to the capacity for growth in the face of loss. The art we had chosen together was replaced with pieces that spoke to my own soul. The playlists that echoed our shared moments gave way to melodies that resonated with my newfound solitude. As the seasons changed, so too did the shadow that Emily's absence had cast over my life. The sharp edges of my grief softened, blending into the tapestry of my experiences, a poignant but integral thread in the larger narrative of my life. I learned to embrace the solitude, to find peace in the stillness, and to appreciate the lessons that our love and its loss had taught me. Reflections on trust, on love, and on the impermanence of relationships became the pillars upon which I began to rebuild. The realization that to love is to risk betrayal, but also to open oneself to the possibility of profound connection, was a bittersweet truth that guided my healing. And so as I stood at the window, watching the city unfold below, the lights no longer reminders of a life lost but beacons of a future yet to be written, I understood that the end of our story was not a conclusion, but a beginning. A first step on a path towards forgiveness, towards healing, and eventually towards love again, tempered by the wisdom of experience and the resilience of a heart that had known loss, but chose to remain open nonetheless. The journey from heartbreak to healing was not linear, nor was it without its moments of backsliding into the depths of sorrow and regret. But with each step forward, each lesson learned, the fragments of my broken heart began to form a new whole, not the same as before, but beautiful in its complexity and its capacity for renewal. In the end, the reflections and regrets of our relationship became the foundation for a deeper, more profound understanding of myself and the world around me. The pain of the past, though never fully erased, became a compass, guiding me towards a future where trust, though fragile, was not beyond repair, and where love in all its forms remained the greatest adventure of all.